ناظرین السلام علیکم، آپ دیکھ رہے ہیں پروگرام پرسپیکٹیو نقطۂ نظر اویس اقبال کے ساتھ جیو ٹی وی پہ۔ ناظرین پچھلے پورے ایک مہینے سے بلکہ اب تو چند دن اضافی بھی ہو چکے ہیں جو صورتحال میرے اور آپ کے سامنے موجود ہے اسرائیل حماس کی جنگ کے نتیجے میں ناظرین ہزارہا بے گناہ فلسطینیوں کا خون بہایا جا چکا ہے۔ ناظرین 10,000 سے زائد فلسطینی شہید ہو چکے ہیں اور خدا جانے کتنے ہزار انجرڈ ہیں اور کتنے ہزاروں اور لاکھوں اپنے گھروں سے بے گھر ہو گئے ہیں۔ ناظرین غزہ کا وہ علاقہ جو اس وقت میرے اور آپ کے سر دست ہے، ناظرین میں اور آپ ایز انڈیویجول ہیومن بینگ، ایز آرڈنری سٹیزن آف دس ورلڈ انتہائی افسردہ پریشان نظر آ رہے ہیں۔ لیکن ناظرین وہی ہم نے دیکھا کہ ہزاروں اور لاکھوں کی تعداد میں دنیا کے بڑے سے بڑے شہروں کا آپ نام لے لیں، ٹورنٹو، مونٹریال، واشنگٹن ڈی سی، لندن ہو جائے، کوئی بھی دنیا کا بڑے سے بڑا شہر ہو، وہاں پہ آپ نے دیکھا کہ لاکھوں کی تعداد میں لوگ باہر نکلے اور انہوں نے اپنے فلسطینی بھائیوں کے ساتھ اظہار یکجہتی کیا۔ لیکن افسوس کی بات یہ ہے کہ جب مسلمان یا نان مسلم اگر فلسطینیوں کے ساتھ کھڑے ہوتے ہیں، حتیٰ کہ ہم تو یہ مانتے ہیں کہ کسی کا بھی خون نہیں بہایا جانا چاہیے، چاہے وہ یہودی ہو، فلسطینی ہو، جو ہے وہ مسلمان ہو، نان مسلم ہو، کوئی بھی اس چیز سے خوشی نہیں منا سکتا۔ لیکن ناظرین جب جو کچھ کیا جا رہا ہے اس کے خلاف اگر کھڑا ہوا جائے تو یہ کہا جاتا ہے کہ اسرائیل دشمنی کی جا رہی ہے، اینٹی سیمیٹزم کا کام کیا جا رہا ہے۔ میں نہیں سمجھتا کہ جذبات ہمارے یہ ہیں، ہمارے جذبات تو صرف یہ ہیں کہ ہم دیکھنا چاہتے ہیں کہ مسلمان حکمران ہماری نمائندگی کب کریں گے اور جو ہیومن رائٹس کے چیمپئنز جو ممالک ہیں، جو ویسٹرن کنٹریز ہیں، وہ کب آخر آگے بڑھیں گے اور اس مسئلے کا حل نکالیں گے تاکہ بے گناہ فلسطینیوں کا خون نہ بہایا جا سکے۔ اور ساتھ ہی ساتھ ناظرین جب ہم دیکھتے ہیں کہ ہمارے حکمران یہ کام کرنے سے قاصر ہیں تو ہم یہ بھی دیکھ رہے ہیں کہ بہت ساری چیریٹی آرگنائزیشنز ہیں کہ جو اس وقت چندے کی اپیل لیے آپ کے سامنے موجود ہیں۔ یہ کیا سلسلہ ہے جہاں ہم دیکھتے ہیں کہ وہاں پہ فلسطینیوں تک ایڈ نہیں پہنچ پا رہی ہے، بارڈرز بند ہیں، تو یہ جتنے چیریٹیبل آرگنائزیشنز ہیں یہ جو پیسے جمع کر رہے ہیں یہ مدد آخر فلسطینیوں تک کب اور کیسے پہنچے گی؟ ناظرین اس پہ بات کرنے کے لیے آج ہم نے دعوت دی ہے ہیومینٹی انٹرنیشنل کے ایگزیکٹو ڈائریکٹر جناب فراز عزیز صاحب کو۔ فراز صاحب السلام علیکم اینڈ ویلکم ٹو دی شو۔
وعلیکم السلام brother Ovais, thank you for having me, it's my pleasure.
Thank you for giving us your time. And at the beginning, I was just talking about the war going on in Palestine, Israel. We are all very well aware of it. One of the top of mind questions is that everybody is asking for money. Everybody is raising money because this is the least probably we can do as a human being to support humanitarian crisis or genocide happening, as some are calling, in Palestine. So the question is, since we see the borders are closed, how these charities are putting these dollars to work and sending aid to Palestine?
It's a great question, and thank you again for the opportunity. Subhanallah, like most people across the planet, including Canadians, are watching in horror as we see the indiscriminate killing of innocent women, children, the elderly, the destruction, the bombing of hospitals, schools. It's very hard to process. It's very hard to watch. I mean, today's day number 30, as you know, brother Ovais. It's a month ago today this all started. The reality of it is that beyond our du'as and beyond our advocating with our elected leaders and our politicians here in Canada and across the globe is, as you said, most people are willing to donate some money. The question is, how is aid getting into Gaza? What people tend to forget is that Gaza has been under bombardment since 2006. It's been blockaded and sieged since 2006. And so the people of Gaza have found a way to live. Gaza, it's about 25 kilometers in length, about 5 kilometers in width. So that's 125 square kilometers. So, while, the northern part of Gaza is getting bombed and the southern part of Gaza is getting bombed, there's still a life across the enclave. And so, as an example, humanity works with a number of agencies, including UNRWA, which is the United Nations agency created for the protection and the service of the Palestinian people. So we are working with agencies who have resources on the ground across the enclave of Gaza, and they're using up those resources. And as we know, 1 month in, it's pretty much coming to an end. And so we have been able to, alhamdulillah, because we've been invested in Gaza, we've been supporting Gaza and the West Bank, by the way, for a number of years. Our agencies have been on the ground deploying, whether it's in food or healthcare or water or even fuel in the beginning. There's no more fuel, it's all gone. Water is at a premium right now. And so, the simple answer is, the agencies on the ground have had access to their supplies. They're using out every last ounce of it and running out. So yeah, no new money is getting into Gaza, but aid is absolutely getting into Gaza.
So no new money is getting into Gaza until now, but then, humanity has been on the ground and invested in Palestine for many, many years. So that's why you have the infrastructure and you had access to whatever you could to provide emergency relief in Gaza.
100%, 100%. And the question is always asked of me. I just came back from traveling through the United States. I was in Dallas and Houston to raise funds for Gaza. And one of the questions people kept asking is why you continue to raise money if you can't get money in. And it's a great question. The reality of it is, Brother Ovais, is that the Rafah border has opened. It opens intermittently for aid to get in. The aid agencies need to make sure that when it's open, they can get supplies in. But those supplies take time to procure. They require money. They require time. So we raise money to be able to support our agencies so that they can prepare themselves to replenish that stock as those inventories as the border opens up for a very short period of time and a few trucks. I think they're saying in the past month, maybe maximum 500 trucks have gotten in total. And that is just a drop in the ocean of what is needed. So, it's about being proactive and having funds accessible so that, the agencies that we work with, which we're on the ground in Gaza, can actually have access to external money to be able to purchase the supplies and inshallah get it through the Rafah, the Egypt border as it opens and closes.
Right. So can you help us understand our viewers, since the conflict has started, what is the role of humanity, yourself, the organization, and what kind of aid and support you guys are providing in terms of emergency relief in Gaza?
Sure. Humanity, like most other agencies, of course, have been supporting our agencies on the ground with the most immediate things. Simple things that we don't think about. Obviously, food, hot meals, canned goods, water. In the beginning, it was blankets. It was pillows. Those things now are hard to find. We also provided fuel, as I alluded to earlier. Earlier in the campaign, we provided fuel. We have no access to fuel any longer. There's no fuel being allowed into Gaza. So all of the supplies that have been used up in Gaza, no more fuel is being allowed in. And as people might not realize, fuel is essential. It's essential to run generators, which generate power for hospitals and schools and clinics. So that itself is very challenging. So we've been supporting that. We've been supporting water tanks, water trucks. Water is a scarcity in Gaza. The water is very salty. Needs to be filtered. And so we've been able to be, alhamdulillah, thanks to the generosity of our donors and the people on the ground, we've been able to provide that. We've, of course, been providing a lot of equipment and medicines. And just recently, in the last few days, we've been able to provide a number of beds, hospital beds, to the Indonesian hospital. Most people might not be aware that, again, Gaza is a big place, relatively small when we think about it, but it is a big place in context of that part of the world. And, many hospitals are running on very limited power, running on very limited supplies. And so we've been able to, some of our agency partners, be able to provide, again, hospital beds and medicines, water, as I alluded to, food earlier. And that's really where the greatest needs have been. But I wanted to be clear that these opportunities for helping the immediate, these opportunities are now becoming very, very rare as the supplies are literally running out.
Supplies are running out within Gaza, where these charities can go and buy and start distributing it. That is a problem. So, Brother Firaz, you being in this sector for so long, and these conflicts between Israelis and Palestinians have been going on for so long, as you mentioned. The question I would ask is, what kind of support you're seeing from either Canadian government by being in Canada, or also you're seeing coming from our politicians in America and other parts of the world?
So first of all, like millions of people across the planet, people are waking up to the reality of the destruction in Gaza. It's no longer about a regional conflict. It's no longer about a war between two parties. This is a humanitarian disaster. And in fact, just yesterday, 18 UN agencies signed a letter, including UNRWA, including UNHCR. We're talking about the heads of the United Nations. 18 different agencies signed pleading with the international community to push for a ceasefire. As you know, Our politicians have been absolutely quiet and silent in this regard in terms of a ceasefire. But alhamdulillah, more and more people are speaking up. Organizations, I know even domestically, the NDP federally has called for a ceasefire. I mean, I'm sure we've all signed those letters. I want to encourage people, first of all, to continue writing to their politicians, to advocate in whatever way they can. We absolutely need a ceasefire so we can get proper aid into the people of Gaza. So we've seen that, number one. Number two, we've seen a lot of protests, of course. I know in Washington, D.C. on Saturday, there was close to 400,000 people from all walks of life. This is not about Muslims or Jews. This is nothing about religion. This is about human right. This is about the dignity of human right. As you know, Brother Ovais, humanity is about preserving the dignity of human right. And so we are working to ensure that we can get aid in. But quite frankly, the only way we can save life is to advocate for a ceasefire so that supplies can get in. Supplies getting in or getting bombed, as you know. Up to yesterday, there was an ambulance that was bombed. And they've admitted it that, they bombed it because, again, of other things. But the reality of it is that nowhere is safe. Like just today, Antonio Guterres, who is the UN, the chief of the United Nations, is saying basically that while Gaza is a graveyard, we just can't be sending a little bit aid into Gaza while it's a graveyard. We need to be doing more. And so this is what we're asking people. Beyond, of course, money, yes, alhamdulillah, and your prayers, we must advocate.
Absolutely, we must advocate. Viewers, we'll take a quick break here. Once we come back from the break, we'll keep the conversation going and we'll let you know. You also need to understand, once the dust settles here, whether it's 1 day or 1 week from now, what is it going to look like and how you and I need to step up to support the people of Gaza. Please stay with us. Viewers, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. We're talking about the situation in Israel, between Israel and Hamas war. What is the ramification of the war? It's been 30 plus days as we are all witnessing how Gaza has been bombarded and how many people have been, martyred, and how many people have lost their homes and lost their lives and lost their loved ones. This is a very alarming and sad situation. I don't know what else to say. Brother Firaz, before going to the break, you were mentioning about those big protests. We saw Washington, D.C., Montreal, Toronto, London, you name it. All the major cities, most cities in the world, we saw hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people coming up on the streets. But it does not look like that it is resonating very well with the local governments. So what do you have to say about it?
As a Canadian, first of all, I can't speak to what's going on in the rest of the world. As a Canadian, I'm horrified. I'm incredibly disappointed. I'm disheartened by the stance of our Canadian government. Canada has always been seen, and I'm proud to say, everywhere I travel, I'm proud to say I'm from Canada. We're a country of international law. We're a country of human rights. We're a country of compassion. Actually, it's in our founding. It's part of our founding principles. Compassion and service to the community is part of our founding principles. And so, of course, it's extremely disappointing that our government still has not called for a ceasefire. They've called for something called a pause. I'm not sure what a pause is. Maybe a 30-second pause. I don't know what that means. So, I'm not sure what else to say. I'm like everyone else. Most people, we've seen people from all stripes. We've seen people, young and old, men and women, from the Black community, from the Indigenous community, from the Jewish community, from you name it, from the Christian community, and of course from the Muslim community. Everybody's standing up to say this is unacceptable. When you have, from Doctors Without Borders, you have Amnesty International, you have the United Nations, you have all of the agencies. And in fact, you have governments also speaking out, as an example, in the government of Ireland, saying that what is going on in there is a human catastrophe. It's a disaster. You referred to it earlier. Many are now calling it a genocide. The fact that our country is lined up behind a genocide is incredibly hurtful. We know what has happened to the Indigenous community here in Canada, and yet we have this government that's doing that. The only way we can change that, Brother Ovais, is we have to become active politically, right? I mean, we have to call our MP, our MPP, our councillor. We have to continue to advocate. That's what we can do. But that's not going to make a difference, unfortunately, right now in Gaza, right? So we have to continue to pray, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we're seeing some of the politicians from the Liberal Party of Canada. Lately, we just saw Iqra Khalid stood in the House of Commons and she spoke about the emotions that she's hearing from the people living in her riding. So why not I show this to our viewer? Let's see what Iqra has said in the Parliament in the recent days.
30 days. I been listening to and consoling residents in Mississauga, Erin Mills, and across Canada for the deaths of thousands of innocent Palestinians and Israelis. I really join them in their pain, their grief, and their calls to action in this chamber. Parents having to explain to their kids why they're seeing death and horror in their social media feeds. Children too afraid to wear religious symbols at school. Neighbors grieving the deaths of loved ones who lived in the region and feel silence from publicizing their pain. Faith leaders fearing for the safety of congregations, asking police to stand over while they pray. Mr. Speaker, I hear the calls from Canadians for a humanitarian ceasefire, the release of civilian hostages, and a dedicated humanitarian corridor. We must work harder to achieve a just and lasting peace for all Palestinians and Israelis for the sake of humanity, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
So, Faraz, as you can see, what Iqra Khalid, who is the member of parliament from Mississauga, Erin Mills riding, she finally, stood and spoke, and I hope and assume that many others will stand up and, ask for ceasefire and, Canadian government to intervene and not allow one party to, just keep bombarding until everybody is died in Gaza. So, just changing the subject here, so as I said after coming from the break, once the dust settles, based on your experience, what are we looking at as phase 2, phase 3, and even phase 4?
So listen, Allahu Alam, we don't know what the future holds. We don't know how long this will continue, but we are hearing the rhetoric that we're hearing from the Israeli government, of course, is that they're just beginning for a long, difficult battle. I don't know what that means. What does it mean for a humanitarian organization like Humanity? What it means is we have to start thinking about how are we going to protect not just the physical, but the mental, the emotional and spiritual health of those who survive. And only Allah knows who will survive. I mean, today we know it's over 10,000 people slaughtered. We know over 20,000 people. I'm talking just about Gaza, right? We haven't even talked about what's going on in the West Bank. And process it, what the future holds. But as a humanitarian organization, as one of thousands of humanitarian organizations, we're starting to think about what will come next. And for Humanity right now, it's the family assistance program that we're planning that out so that we can ultimately, in the Honora schools and other locations where families have been gathered, that we can start providing some semblance of services to them beyond the immediate food, water, and medicines right now, and of course shelter.
Awesome, that's great. And one question which is also top of mind for myself, for people, those who we interact with, is the emotions are quite high. When you talk to people, they're seeing the news, they're just worrying about the entire situation. But how do we find balance between the emotions and being careful? Because what we're also seeing, some people are losing their jobs by, making statements that they should not be making, or they should be making the right way. How shall we find the balance and, still express our emotions and express our concerns to our co-workers, to our, fellow Canadians and other people in this world?
Great question. We're struggling with that. All of us are struggling with that. First and foremost, I want to say this. What is going on in Gaza now is a humanitarian catastrophe. I'm not telling you this. The UN is telling you this. Doctors Without Borders is telling you this. Amnesty, the list goes on and on. My point is, this is about humanity. It's in our name. We're actually called Humanity. What we want people to think about is we want them to react to their humanity. We want to implore the humanity of others. For me, I can't even think about peace and justice. I'm just thinking about where is the humanity of Canadians. Not just Muslim Canadians or Jewish Canadians, but Canadians. Where is the humanity of the world? Because if we look inside our hearts and think about, I have 2 young boys at home, Ovais. I kiss them every night when I go to bed. I was traveling recently, I came back, and I was saying to them that, the reason I left home and went to the United States was to advocate for our brothers and sisters in Gaza who have no voice. We have to just think about humanity. And so when we speak, yes, we're emotional, but we're not going to start blaming people and, because we have no power to change the politics. We do have the power because we live in Canada and it's a free country. We can speak the truth and we can advocate for humanity. And anyone who wants to advocate for humanity should not be harmed in any way, shape, or form, quite frankly. We shouldn't see any harm coming to them. So I would remind people to speak the truth. The truth is, people are getting killed in Gaza. The truth is, we need a ceasefire so humanitarian aid can get in. The truth is, without that, more people will die. And the truth is, every single one of us as a Canadian has a responsibility and a right to remind our government that as part of the Charter of Human Rights in Canada is the protection of our life, our livelihood, our property, our person, our dignity, our religion, and our free speech. Everyone has that right. And so once we do that with respect, then there should be no problems, inshallah.
And in my beginning introduction, I said, many organizations are raising funds. Not many, I would say maybe hundreds and thousands of them around the world are calling for, donors to come forward and give their money so then aid can reach Gaza or people of Palestine. What are some of the key criteria that donors should look before they hand over their money, their emotions in the hands of a charity?
First of all, we know that sadly in times like these, there's also a lot of people who take advantage of donors, right? So first of all, obviously, you want to ensure that it's an organization that you trust, the work that you're doing, that they're communicating with you what they're doing. One of the things we've tried to do at Humanity Oasis is we've tried to stay in touch, like literally, every couple of days our donors receive an email that tells them what we're doing, how we spent the money, and we provide on the ground video and or images, right? That's really important. Number two, of course, is that we have to appreciate that many agencies right now are simply raising money in anticipation of being able to get aid in. And we're very blessed at Humanity that our partners on the ground have been able, up to today, are still working. Even though people should be aware, every single one of our aid agencies in Gaza have lost people. People have been killed. So that's the reality on the ground. So you know that the people who are on the ground, they're working beyond their means. They're trying to save their fellow Palestinian. They're trying to save lives of literally their family, friends, and their community. So I think it's really important for people to pay attention to the agencies. Sadly, even Humanity recently got scammed, where folks were using our digital presence to raise money. Alhamdulillah, we were able to alert the authorities and be able to bring in. They're called phishing sites, right? It appears as though it's us. And so you have to be aware of that. It's very sad that in this type of a world where things are going on, there's still people, criminals, if you will, out there who are trying to scam. So you just have to know who you're dealing with, and feel free to pick up the phone and call the agency if you think something is amiss. But again, at Humanity, we don't communicate publicly in terms of our activities. We communicate directly to our donors, so they have the confidence that when they donate to an organization like Humanity, we are responsive to their needs, and that we're very clear about how we're spending their money. And I think people need to really be doing that today, because there's a lot, as we've experienced sadly firsthand, there are people out there now who are actually trying to benefit in this very, very difficult circumstance.
So thank you so much, Brother Firaz Aziz, sharing your time and your expertise and all about Humanity, what Humanity is doing today on the ground in Gaza, and what are some of the plans in the future. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts all your efforts and give us peace and harmony and togetherness, inshallah, in the times to come.
I mean, thank you, Brother Ovais, and thank you for giving us the opportunity. And we require, again, ask people to pray for everyone in Gaza, and across the planet. As you know, there are emergencies right now in Morocco and Libya, in Afghanistan, all across the planet. So, inshallah, we need everybody to be praying for those as well, inshallah.
ناظرین، آپ نے دیکھا کہ یہ جو صورتحال اس وقت غزہ میں موجود ہے، نہ صرف یہ وہاں ان لوگوں کا امتحان ہے، لازماً یہ کڑا امتحان ہے. شاید میں اور آپ سوچ بھی نہیں سکتے کہ مجھے اور آپ کو، ہماری فیملیز کو اس مشکل سے گزرنا پڑے. میں اور آپ سے کمپریہینڈ بھی نہیں کر سکتے. لیکن ناظرین، جہاں ان کے لیے یہ شدید پریشانی اور آزمائش کی صورتحال ہے، وہیں میرے اور آپ کے لیے بھی آزمائش ضرور ہے کہ کیا میں اور آپ اپنے گھر بیٹھ کے سکون سے، ناظرین، اپنی خوشیوں میں، اپنے وہ فنکشنز میں، اپنے معاملات میں اس قدر بزی ہیں کہ ہمیں ہمارے بھائی بہنوں کا خیال بھی ہے کہ نہیں. ناظرین، اس پہ ضرور غور کیجئے گا، اور جو بھی استطاعت طاقت اللہ نے مجھے اور آپ کو عطا کی ہے وہ ہمیں استعمال کرنی ہے. چاہے اپنے پیسے سے ڈونیٹ کر سکیں، ان کے حق میں دعا کر سکیں، یا باہر نکل کے ایڈوکیٹ کر سکیں. ناظرین، کسی بھی ایسی اپرچونٹی کو اپنے ہاتھ سے جانے مت دیجیے گا. رزق دینے والی ذات اللہ تبارک و تعالیٰ کی ذات ہے. اگر اس نے آپ کو کسی آزمائش میں ڈالنا ہوگا تو کوئی بچانے والا نہیں، اور اگر اس نے نہیں ڈالنا تو کوئی اس آزمائش میں آپ کو ڈالنے والا نہیں ہوگا. ناظرین، اپنا خیال رکھیے گا. اگلے ہفتے آپ سے پھر ملاقات ہوگی. السلام علیکم.